Ah, hello there. If you like creepy stories, scary mysteries, and all things that go bump in the night, then this is the channel for you. And today, I've got another spine-chilling tale that will leave you questioning what lurks in the shadows. So grab your headphones, settle in, and prepare to be terrified. Because this is the story of the Smiling Man. It was a cold and foggy night, the kind where the world seems quieter than usual and every sound is amplified. I was walking home from a late meeting in the city. The streets were mostly empty except for a few distant cars and the occasional flicker of streetlights struggling through the mist. I usually enjoy walking alone. It gives me time to think. But tonight something felt off. The silence was too heavy, the shadows too deep. I couldn't shake this feeling that I was being watched. As I rounded a corner, the fog suddenly thickened, swirling around me like a thick blanket. The lamplight turned hazy and distant. Just ahead, I saw a figure standing near a lamppost silhouetted against the faint glow. I wasn't sure if it was a man or a woman, but as they turned their head to follow me, I saw it was a man. Tall and thin, almost lanky, he was dressed strangely in a dark suit that should have been black, but I couldn't tell because of the fog and the shadows. I kept walking. As I passed, I caught a glimpse of his face, and that was when I realized I wanted to turn around, walk the other way, do anything to escape the sight of the man, standing motionless with an unnatural grin plastered on his face. It was a smile that was way too wide, stretching ear to ear. It didn't look right. In fact, it looked terrible, and what was unsettling was how still he was. How motionless. He just stood there staring at me as I walked by. I don't know why it affected me so much. Maybe it was the setting, the eerie silence, the mist that swirled around us. But something about that smile sent shivers down my spine, primal fear gripping my heart. I told myself to ignore him, to just keep walking. But I found myself glancing back over my shoulder. Of course, he was still there, standing in the same spot, his smile unwavering. And that's when I noticed something odd. He wasn't actually smiling. His lips were pulled back, but there was no joy in the movement, no mirth, only a ghastly emptiness, a void where a smile should have been. It was as if someone had taken a knife and carved a smile into his face, turning up the corners, exposing too much teeth, making him look like a grotesque mockery of a human being. I quickened my pace, my footsteps echoing loudly against the empty street. But the deeper I walked, the more I felt a growing sense of dread wash over me. And I knew, somehow, I just knew that I wasn't alone. Something was following me, moving in the shadows just beyond my sight. I could feel its presence like a predator stalking its prey, getting closer with every step. When I glanced back, the man was no longer by the lamppost. He was now walking behind me. I crossed the street to the other side, hoping to lose him in the fog or the shadows. But there he was, across the street, just standing and smiling at me. That eerie, unnatural grin glowed eerily in the dim light. My heart pounded harder in my chest, threatening to burst out of my ribs. I ran. I had no idea where I was going, just that I had to get away from that man with his terrible smile. I dodged between parked cars, leaped over cracks in the pavement, and turned down narrow alleys, each one darker and more treacherous than the last. But he was faster than I was, and soon I could hear his heavy breathing behind me. He was getting closer. Then he spoke, his voice raspy and hollow, like the wind whistling through a tomb. "Run," he rasped, his words echoing weirdly in the tight space. "Run, little one. Run as fast as you can. But you can't hide." His words were like ice water, seeping into my bones, chilling me to the core. He caught up to me in a narrow alleyway. I turned to face him, bracing myself for whatever horror he had in store for me. But he wasn't there. I spun around, desperate to find him, to see what he was up to, but I couldn't find him anywhere. Only his mocking smile was still burned into my mind. Then I heard a low chuckle behind me. Turning slowly, I saw him leaning against the wall, his grin even wider now, revealing teeth that were far too sharp, far too long to belong to any human being. Panic surged through me. I turned to run, but he was quicker. In a blink, he was in front of me, blocking my path. I stumbled back, knocking over a trash can, the sound echoing loudly in the confined space. "Nowhere to go," he whispered, his voice dripping with a cruel amusement. "Nowhere to hide." I backed away, my eyes darting around, searching for an escape, anything that could help me. But there was none. I was trapped, cornered by a monster that had emerged from the shadows, lured out by my own foolish curiosity. He leaned closer, his hot breath washing over me, carrying the stench of decay and damp earth. "Don't be afraid," he rasped, his voice a venomous hiss. "I just want to show you something." Before I could react, he grabbed my hand, his fingers cold and clammy, like touching a corpse. We moved outside into the open street. The fog had thickened, making the street feel like a different world, one where shadows danced and secrets whispered on the breeze. Looking back, I saw that the other end of the alley was shrouded in mist, as if the fog itself was hiding something. He led me to the center of the street, stopping in front of a wall covered in peeling posters, the images beneath barely discernible, faded by time and weather. He gestured toward the wall with a jerk of his chin. "Look," he whispered, his voice tight with anticipation. For a moment, I couldn't see anything, just the rough texture of the wall. But then he pressed something into my palm. It was small and smooth, like polished stone. I turned it over in my hand, feeling its weight, its coldness. It was a stone gargoyle. "This," he said, his voice filled with a strange reverence, "is where we meet, where the veil between our worlds is thinnest." He placed the gargoyle on the ground, letting it rest against the wall. It seemed ordinary enough, just a cheap souvenir, perhaps a tourist trinket picked up from some forgotten place. But in his hands, it held a power that chilled me to the bone. As the fog swirled around us, he began to move, his limbs jerking and twitching in jerky, unnatural motions, like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings. It was a dance, but one that was disturbing and wrong, as if his body wasn't quite human. He moved closer, stepping forward, taking a bow, his head dipping low, almost touching the ground. He remained motionless, his body rigid, his eyes fixed on the gargoyle. Slowly, he began to rise, moving stiffly at first. Then, with growing fluidity, he glided and swayed, his body twisting and contorting in ways that shouldn't be possible. His movements were both mesmerizing and terrifying, drawing me in, yet repelling me. There was a strange, haunting melody in the air, barely audible, like a lament carried on the wind. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then he stopped, straightening up, his gaze sweeping over me, lingering on my face. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, he let out a harsh rasp, like sandpaper scraping against stone. He pointed at me, his finger trembling, then dropped it to his side. He turned again, facing the gargoyle, and bowed deeply, like a performer taking a final bow. And in that moment, I understood this wasn't just a dance. It was a ritual, and I was witnessing something ancient, something evil. He disappeared into the fog and shadows as if he was never there. I stood there, shaking, unsure if it was a hallucination or something far worse. 4 weeks after, every time I walked alone at night, I felt like I was being watched. Sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I'd glimpse a tall figure with a terrible smile standing just out of reach. I tried telling friends and family, but they said it was just stress or my imagination. But I know what I saw, and sometimes, late at night, when the streets are empty and the fog rolls in, I swear that smile is still out there, waiting. Now, if you want to dive into more spin-chilling tailies, make sure to check out these terrifying stories. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because the scariest part is you never know when the smiling man might appear in your darkest nightmares.